road goes to it, and there's one over here, and that road goes down there. The trees also go down to that vanishing point. And there's more than one distance cue in almost every painting. You can see that the house down there is small. So, and the texture becomes less obvious as the trees get farther away.
Can I ask you a question about that?
You bet.
Is that 9 different tiles, or is that a rule of thirds painted in?
I think that he painted on different pieces of paper. I think these are paper pasted together. He probably pasted them together first and then painted on them. I'm not sure. He might have painted on them separately. I don't think so. But he does that. He'll paint on segments of something and then put them together. Okay, you can put the vanishing point any place you want to, including up in the sky. This is a Georgia O'Keeffe painting. This is called the Lawrence Tree. And this was in honor of her friend D.H. Lawrence, who was there. That tree is still there, and people will go and lie down under the tree in order to get this perspective. Okay, this guy is a living British artist. His name is Richard Estes, and this is a virtuoso use of single point perspective. I mean, these are some kind of mirror thing, which are mirroring that part of the street over there. So we got 1, 2, I don't know, what's it, 1, 2, 3 anyway, and then that part. He's called a hyperrealist. Why anybody would paint this way, I cannot imagine. I mean, it's amazing and wonderful, and I would love to see this in person, but there is no way I would paint like this. I would be screaming down the street. Okay, now there are counterexamples to the use of perspective, and this is another ancient Chinese painting. So we know with perspective that the railroad tracks don't really converge. They just look like they do, right? So what's happening here is they painted parallel lines as parallel, because that's what we know. So who's to say, really, how to represent reality anyway? Should it be what we know to be true, or should it be what we perceive? So this is the other philosophy. This is, we know they're parallel, we're going to make them parallel. It looks weird to Western eyes. Okay, and here is a diagram that sort of illustrates that. So on the same thing. So over here, you've got a vanishing point off over there somewhere, and the sides of the window are converging to go to that vanishing point, and the door and the bench and everything, the tiles, they're all headed for that vanishing point. And that's what you see. That's what you perceive. Okay, but here's what you know. So all the tiles, this is all parallel. The window, that's parallel. The door, everything that is really parallel stays parallel in the painting. It looks very odd to Western eyes, but it's another way of representing reality. Okay, if you want to really drive yourself crazy, this is a picture, and there are vanishing points everywhere. All right, foreshortening. I consider foreshortening to be a variant of linear perspective. Foreshortening is caused by the angle of your view of something. Usually it's used in art school to describe the variation in the way you would paint body parts. So, so this guy's leg, you know he's got a big long leg, but right here in the painting it's very short. arms also, and I think to some extent, this guy's head, if you look, he's got his head tilted back a little bit, and there is a little bit of linear perspective on his head, so that the jaw looks bigger, whereas this guy is looking straight ahead, and you don't see that. So this is Kehinde Wilder, who painted the Obama official portrait. This is a little drawing that I did at a concert, and you can see some foreshortening in the cellist's bow arm here. Okay, surprising things. This is another Francis Bacon. We're expecting to see a foreshortened arm coming out toward us, because there's something there that's the color of his suit, and there's his leg that's coming toward us. We don't know what's happening with that leg. But it gets our attention because we're expecting to see an arm there that's shortened. But that's a blobby thing. That's something else. And I don't know what it is. But because we're expecting X and he produces Y, then we look to see what it is. Okay. Motion parallax. Yeah. Yes, I think it would. So this is, what's her name? Yayoi Kusama. This is an installation, and I have not seen this. I found this on the web. So this is a room that's all painted yellow with black polka dots, and in the middle of the room is a mirrored cube. So if you're just standing still, it's real hard to disambiguate the polka dots on the cube from the rest of it. But if you were to walk around it, then the polka dots on the cube would move differentially from the ones in the background. It's like if you're on a train and the trees up close to you and houses are whizzing by real fast, but the ones in the distance don't move. It's that principle. So some among us have seen this or one like it. What was it like?
Well, you don't have the sense that you know where the wall is and back. You're completely confused when you're walking through it.
Even when you're walking?
Yes, because the what's on the wall is bouncing off from the mirror.
No, it's not. This is a room. It's an actual room. And here are actual people
But the
walking
rooms,
through
the
different
props are actually painted.
Yeah. So
And the walls.
So in this one, it's a room that's painted, and then there's this cube, and you walk into the room. And here you can see it's kind of the opposite. The floor and the walls and the ceiling are mirrored, and then there are these things. And I did put a question mark because I'm not sure that walking through it would help, but Anne says it doesn't. she's seeing the exhibit. But I have to tell you a story about motion parallax, and that is my husband and I were on vacation one time, and I don't have stereoscopic vision, so I can't locate things in space that way. I have to have these other cues, monocular cues. So we were in some quaint village somewhere, and there was a river over here, and there were some quaint houses, not a very big river, on the other side of the river, and you could go tour them. And I said, I want to tour the pink one with the white trim. And he said, he looked at me like I was crazy first. And I said, what? And he said, that one's on this side of the river. And I said, no, the pink one with the white trim. And he said, that's on this side of the group. And so we had this exchange like 5 times. Everybody getting progressively more frustrated. But he was an experimental psychologist, and he understood about these things. And he finally remembered, I don't have stereoscopic vision, and he said, take 3 steps to the left. And I did, and the pink one moved, and the others didn't. It was the same size as the ones across the river.
My goodness.
But then I could see a little gray pole that wasn't very visible. It was a birdhouse. It was on this side of the river. So that's what stereopsis will do for you.
Oh my
It
goodness.
can tell you where the birdhouse is. Okay.
Does it make you dizzy?
I bet it does, doesn't it?
Something's gonna fall. You just like really disoriented.
I've seen one of Kusama's infinity rooms, but it wasn't as confusing as these. I would love to see these.
Fred?
Well, I don't know if it's the same one, but Crystal Bridges is where Anne saw,
Yeah.
right?
So are the polka dots painted on the mirror part?
No, they're just painted only on the wall
Okay.
and the floor. Yeah, it's only a reflection. Isn't that weird?
The one we saw had paper lanterns that were lit from the inside and had, opaque dots, and then the lanterns were more or less clear, but the colors changed inside. And you were seeing those, I think they were maybe dabbing around, but they were up and down and high, and some of them were stuck in the mirror. So, anyway, this is a fascinating experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so those, if you Google monocular depth cues, you'll get pretty much this list. There's some variation, but so that's those. And let's talk about stereopsis or stereoscopic cues for depth. I have a hypothesis that an artist who creates like a sculpture would have to imagine what what it would look like. And I have trouble with that, but here are some examples of things that I feel certain the artist must have envisioned ahead of time. This is a sculpture by Richard Serra. This was at Gagosian in New York, Gagosian Gallery in New York, which is humongous. Those are children, I think. Yeah, but adults feel pretty dwarfed by these things too. They're steel, they lean.
Oh wow.
And the idea is for you to walk through them. Here's another picture. You have the sense that the thing is going to fall on you.
Wow.
It's kind of scary. I can only stand it for a short period of time. Richard Serra just died this year.
There's one of his at the Modern in Fort Worth. Before you go inside, you know,
Does it feel like it's gonna fall?
yeah.
So he knew what he was doing. This was not an accident. So somebody without stereopsis would never think of that.
Interesting.
Okay, here's another artist who must, I hypothesize, use stereoscopic vision to have a sense of what the work is going to look like. This is string, colored string, but it's lit from outside of it. This is Janet Eckelman. She's living and middle age. We're going to see a lot more from her. So this is a sort of floating sculpture. Here it is in the daytime. Isn't that marvelous? So I've done some hanging installations, as some of you know. I didn't really have a clear sense of what it was gonna look like until after I got it up. Here's my Hello World Cloud Storage 2.0 in New York in 2021, and you could walk around it. There was like a 4-foot walkway around the thing. I was really tickled when I saw what it looked like. I figured it looked like a cloud, but I didn't know for sure. And here is a much expanded version of it at the camp last January. And this one had a path that went through the middle. So you really did feel like you were in it, and it had a very three-dimensional feel, I think. Here's part of the crew who helped me hang that piece. And that's Ann and Sally. The rest of the crew were Harry Tonema, who came to take pictures, but who ended up working. And my grandson, Darwin Rescorla, 16 years old, and he flew the first time to Texas to help me hang the show. Okay, about 3D imaging in videos and virtual reality and things that move, they depend on a reproduction of stereoscopic vision made possible by the offset of your two eyes. Regrettably, I don't have red-green glasses to give everybody, or polarized glasses, or an Apple Vision Pro, so that we could experience this together. So this will be a fairly superficial discussion of 3D movies. So the use of the 3D technique with the red-green glasses or red-blue glasses has been around quite a while. Its first use in a movie was in 1922. I was surprised that it was that old. I went to 3D movies in the 50s. It seemed like there was a resurgence of them, and everybody had the red-green glasses, and I had no clue what it was that was so amazing. It was kind of embarrassing, you know, everybody was like, so this is an image, this is called an anaglyph. This one is taken from an IMAX movie. And so the image is taken by two cameras and then projected not quite overlapping. So that if you view the image without the 3D glasses, this is what you see. Or if you don't have stereoscopic vision and you view it with the 3D glasses, this is what you see. So one eye sees each image, and so each eye sees an image, and your brain fuses it, and that produces the sense of depth, the sense of the thing coming forward out of the screen, the space of the screen, I think. So they tell me. Also, I had no virtual reality headsets to give you, but VR also depends on reconstructing the experience using the human ability to do stereopsis. So it's not magic in the technology, it's that the technology is trying to figure out how we do it and to give us the opportunity to do that. So, this is, I'm going to show you, this is my video that I wrote for New York. It is a sort of shallow depth. I'm calling it a moving image, even though the image itself doesn't move. There are a lot of lines and things that do move. And so I'm just going to let it run. That line should disappear in a minute. it's going to construct a couple of portraits, and then it will wipe them out with black and reconstruct them in a different way. I'm sorry about that line. I got rid of it yesterday. I don't know why it's still there.
There it goes.
we go. It runs about 15 minutes. So if anybody has any questions or comments or whatever, now we can talk about things now. Yes?
Wasn't there a time maybe in the 80s or something like that, we had this magic eye thing where you look at a image and if some people were able to see a 3D picture in a bunch of dots and stuff, we call it a magic eye or the funny eye or the silly eye.
On a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Yes, right. So you look at the piece of paper and it's just a bunch of dots, and you put on the 3D glasses and it's Lincoln. Yeah, I could never see Lincoln.
Supposedly, without the glasses, if you let your eyes relax, you
Yes.
can see the image. Yeah.
Yes, I heard that. Yes. Yeah.
Shirley, when you begin a project, first off, thank you so very, very much. You're a wonderful artist. Do you have a predetermined end in mind and then you just make it up as you go along? Or do you go like, I'm gonna do a painting that will look like this, yada, 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 here it is. And do you do the yada, yada, yada on the fly, or do you have a predetermined idea of how you're gonna make it come to pass?
It varies. I usually do something like, I think I'd like to do a painting or a video or a whatever that in the end will look sort of like something. And then it's how do I get there? And then along the way, stuff happens. And I modify as I go, and sometimes I do end up with something like what I had thought of originally, and sometimes it's way off, and sometimes I abandon the project in the middle because it made me think of something else, and that's what happened with this. I was doing a totally different thing, and something about the project I was working on made me think of this, and I went, oh, and I wrote this in like 10 minutes. But it's because somehow it gelled.
Thank you for explaining my thought process on this Hitler Stalin class I've been teaching forever.
Stuff happens.
So that's exactly what happened.
Somebody else, yes? Oh, yes.
Yes. Of all the cues, which ones seem to make us humans pay attention the most or surprised enough? Of all the cues, from the perspective of usage of master artists, is there a go-to that they seem to use, or one that sticks out, one of those cues that seems to stick out amongst those?
I think, the one that people think of first, the go-to, is linear perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that really causes the viewer to look is when you violate the expectation for whatever cue. So, you're expecting something and it's like, what is this?
I think those are so interesting, what you've done, and it's, how did you do it? You said you just kind of programmed it. I know that gets really technical, but just.
I can tell you conceptually what happens here. The program that I wrote is, unbeknownst to the viewer, looking at a photograph of me. And so this is a variation on what's called the random walker routine, if anybody programs. So I tell the program to begin with, look at a random place on the photograph and get the color from that place, and put that color on the screen, in which case it's usually, it's my computer screen. And then, in the case of the lines, within certain radius that I tell it, it can be long or it can be short, in a random direction, go somewhere else and find another spot. and look at the photograph again. What's that color? Okay, so the line it drew was in the first color. So it gets another color, draws another line in a different color, and then gets another spot, randomly, random direction, draws another line in whatever color was there. So it's reproducing the colors that were in the photograph. But in random directions. Now this is a video, so it's gonna do the same thing over and over. But because there's a lot of randomization in the program, it won't run the same every time, or any time. It will go in different directions, get different colors. It'll produce in the end something kind of like this. But the process of getting there will be real different each time.
So cool.
I have a part 2 to that question. So, have you played with the new AI, like DALL-E, image generators, by any chance?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's on my list.
Okay, I was wondering when you thought about that and how that's going to affect artists.
Yeah, we'll see. I think, there's some fear that it's gonna, take away our mojo. But, I think in the end, we'll figure out how to use it. But I can't make an educated comment about that yet. Maybe next year. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you,
so much for
Shirley.
coming.